The 5 stages of grief are made up of denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. However, we each experience grief in our unique ways. Some stages can come earlier or later. In general, those who have dealt with intense loss in their lives are able to share one small piece in common with others, the idea of grief. I'd like to preface this talk by saying I'm not here to tell you I'm grieving any better than the next person or that there is a correct way to do so. Rather, I hope this talk helps you understand whether or not you've lost a loved one, that grief isn't something you're being graded on or that it's ever expected to go away. It took me a long time to understand that the emotions that accompany grief are A, not linear, and B, do not necessarily appear in the places, ways, or moments that you would expect. Going into high school, I had 2 parents to cheer me on, hearing my complaints or celebrating my achievements. In just a few weeks, I'll be graduating high school with an extra empty seat in the audience. Some people call high school a funeral for your childhood, and as depressing as that sounds, I think it might be true. After all, it's the last 4 years before you're off on your own. When I first came up with this talk, I thought I'd analyze each year of high school in comparison to the stage of grief in their respective order. However, as I thought more about it, I realized that just because they're ordered this way by therapists or doctors doesn't mean that's how they're experienced, and it certainly isn't how I experienced them. Denial is the very first stage. Picture yourself in your freshman year of high school. Naturally, we all had our mystical and perfect ideas of what high school was going to look like, the singing and dancing of Glee or the romances of High School Musical. As the year progresses, many of us choose to hold on to these fantasies, no matter how hard it gets, much like denial. When someone is in denial, they often choose to believe, or try to believe, that their loss hasn't happened, whether continuing to hear or speak to their loved one, or carrying on with a sort of numbness to their pain or the outside world. Denial has truly shaped my life and how I've learned to live through the grief. Stage 2 is depression, coming into play during your 2nd and 3rd year of high school. When we think of depression, there are endless variations to what it can look like, and I'm not going to stand here and give you a talk about what depression is. What I am going to tell you is something you've probably already heard. You can never truly know or truly understand what or when someone is struggling. Theoretically, depression is the second to last stage of grief, followed only by acceptance. This gives a lot of people the impression that grief or depression is simply something to get over. However, I truly believe that depression, no matter the shape it takes, can and does appear in a wide variety of ways throughout the entire grieving process. Bargaining is the most interesting of the 5 stages. Before I lost my mom, it wasn't something I ever could have thought would be associated with death, because who or what would I be bargaining with? I still wonder, but now I've come to the understanding that bargaining can look a lot of different ways. You can bargain with yourself, the universe, or another person. For some people, it looks like making deals with God. For others, it's the idea of what if. What if XYZ hadn't happened? Would they still have died? A large part of bargaining leads to blame, especially when you bargain with yourself. Junior year is the perfect time to start doubting yourself and everything you've ever done, if you haven't started doing that yet. All of the what if this and what if that of your many successes and failures so far, mixed with the knowledge that you're a little bit too close to reality, makes for the perfect downhill of self-esteem. Junior year is also when I started to bargain. It took me a lot of time and a lot of help to come to the realization that due to my grief, I wasn't properly processing other things. Although this did include other difficult or traumatic experiences, it's not limited to these. Bargaining alters how we deal with stress, including new and unknown experiences. Looking back now, bargaining became a way for me to find reason and logic in the sadness and confusion of how my life was supposed to continue. Since then, I found myself rationalizing other experiences, whether things that happened to me or around me. Although it sounds counterproductive, grappling with things far beyond our control helps us come to terms with the unknown. Right before my first day of senior year, my wonderful therapist told me that there's a lot of things that seniors go through, one of which is called regression. This is otherwise known as soiling the nest. This stems from the anger and fear that we have of the unknown that lies just a few months away, the impending doom of college, if you will. Regression is the idea that seniors will start to act like freshmen or even middle schoolers. This includes, but is not limited to, being rude to teachers, having social issues similar to those of freshman year, breaking rules, or engaging in a variety of other out-of-character behaviors. Being angry is the most common symptom of grief. It's a very normal reaction to the injustice of loss, whether it's direct or indirect anger towards yourself, the person who has passed, doctors, others who are grieving, and those who are not. Acceptance is difficult for me to talk about because whatever it is, I can tell you right now, I haven't made it there yet. Acceptance is often believed to be the point in time when grief goes away. I've already mentioned I'm not here to be some sort of expert, but I do know that grief is never something that truly goes away. It is simply something you learn to live with. While anger is its own stage of grief, I don't think you can ever learn to live without the person you've lost without feeling angry about it from time to time. As I reach this supposed funeral of childhood, with all my happy, sad, excited, and scared feelings, comes the understanding that there's nowhere to go but forward. Acceptance isn't about moving on or forgetting, but rather it is about living each day with the consolation that you have loved so much, you now get to grieve. I wasn't here to compare high school with grief, far from it. Rather, I hope this talk provided you with an insight into why and how comparing your grief or judging somebody else's isn't productive. If you haven't experienced anything similar to what I've talked about, that's wonderful. I'm quite happy for you. This also probably means that your opinion isn't really necessary on how to grieve for others. And if you have, I'm terribly sorry. I hope this talk left you with the knowledge that the stages of grief are not a right or wrong, a race, a competition, or a measure of how well you've loved someone. I'd like to leave you with a quote from English psychiatrist Dr. Colin Parks. The pain of grief is just as much a part of life as the joy of love. Thank you.